Hello everyone, welcome to the Infosectrain. My name is Ayush and I will be your instructor for this entire session. In this particular session, we are going to discuss interview question specifically on AWS. I am not only going to discuss question answer, but also I will explain the concept so that you don't have to cram these answer. If you learn the concept, then you can easily address interview question and as well as you can structure your own answer. That is defined Snowball. So Snowball is used to transfer data in AWS and the data can be transferred into AWS and out of it with the help of Snowball. It helps us in transporting a massive amount of data from the source to the destination. It also lowers the networking expenses. Now, Tim, first of all, we use Snowball services just to move data from like S3 to on-premises and on-premises to S3. And snowballs are physical devices that are protected by KMS, right? And they secure and protect your data in transit. And there is no need to buy or maintain your own hardware devices. And if you're using Snowball, then you can just reduce your network expenses. Now, and Snowball can also help you to increase your performance. How? See, take an example. If you're working in an organization and you need to upload around 50 terabyte of data on AWS, I think it's not a good idea if you are just using internet. The reason is that you will be just exhausting the whole bandwidth and they can be like performance issue with other people as well, right? So what we are going to do, we are just using a physical device here just to move data from on premises to AWS, or it can be done vice versa. Now, if you talk about Snow family service models, it comes with Snow Cone, Snowball, Edge, Storage Optimize. Then we have AWS Snowball, Edge, Compute Optimize. Then we have Snowmobile. So now if we talk about snow cone, it can move data around 8 TB. If we talk about snowball edge storage optimize, it provide you storage up to 80 TB. And if you talk about compute optimize, it will give you around 40 TB. But the difference between AWS snowball edge storage optimized and AWS edge compute optimize is that storage optimize is mostly used for storage purpose, but if you are using compute optimize, then it can also use for computing purpose as well. And if you have lots of data, petabyte around, then you can use snowball and just send a truck with a container so that you can just upload your data and it will be just moved to AWS. Okay, so now moving on to the next question. Mention the advantage of auto scaling. The advantages of auto scaling are better availability. So let me tell you how we can have better availability using auto scaling. Now team, we can take an example. Now if we have enabled auto scaling and now for example, you are just hosting a shopping website, and now, if you are just planning for summer sale, winter sale, or any sale you are just going for, now think that in regular days you are just expecting around 500 or 1000 customer on your website, but it's a sale and you don't know that how many customers can be there. Like if your server of out of normal and there are like much traffic, what will happen? Either your server will not perform well, or second case can be down, right? So for this purpose, if you have enabled auto scaling, what will happen? As the traffic will be increased, your server will also be increased. Like your server capacity can be increased or you can increase server as well if you have enabled auto scaling. And if we talk about better cost management, how can we have better cost management with auto scaling? Now take an example, if you're having only single server, right? Now, if you want to move or if you want to have one more server, right? And it's not on daily basis, like in week you can have like a spike around in 3 days. So it's not a good idea just to two servers are running regularly, right? So what you can do, you can just enable auto scaling, and when there will spike, AWS will be adding a one more server. So by this way you can have cost management and it will scale down or it will remove that server when a spike is reduced. So by this way, you can have better cost management and high fault tolerance. For example, now if someone is doing DDoS or DOS attacks on your web server or any server, so what will happen? Your server will go down, right? So for removing or high fault tolerance, if you have enabled auto scaling, what will happen? If someone is trying to increase load on your web server, doing DDoS or DOS attack, so what will happen? Your server capacity will increase, right? Or your servers will be increased. So what will happen? Your server will work fine and you can just mitigate this attack. So if you are having a high sensitive application, then you can use auto scaling. Yes, it will cost you a lot if someone is doing DDoS and auto scaling is enabled, but still your services will be working fine. Okay, so now let's move to another question. Explain the subnet and mention the number of subnets we can have per VPC. Okay. So now team, like subnets are small chunks created by splitting a considerable amount of IP address, and we can have around 200 subnets per VPC. Now team, let's take an example. If you're having one VPC, right? So if you're creating a one VPC, then it's not a good idea just you are consuming the whole VPC or you're using a VPC. So what you can do, you can just break this VPC into small subnet and then you can use it, right? So if you are creating a one VPC and now if you want to host a website, then you can just create a subnet there. And using these subnets, it will be very helpful for you to just launch instances or any other resources. Subnet is nothing but it's just a small chunk created by splitting a considerable amount of IP address. And these are the ranges that you have mentioned while you have created VPC, right? So you have to just mention the CIDR block when you are creating the VPC, and after that when you are creating a subnet, you can just use that CIDR block, right? Moving on to the next question. Define AWS CloudTrail. Now team, if we talk about CloudTrail and AWS service, it helps you enable logging, governance, risk auditing, and compliance of AWS can be referred to as AWS CloudTrail. Okay, so what CloudTrail will do, it will help you to log in. And most important thing is that it is enabled by default in AWS account and logs free information with a 90-day retention. So for this, you don't have to pay anything. Your logs will be stored in CloudTrail at least for 90 days retention. First of all, let us learn why we need logging, right? Now take an example. In our organization, in my team, 7 persons are working. 7 people are working. 7 employees are working. So now take an example. All these are working in the same project and someone has by mistake done something or knowingly has done something. So if there is no accountability, so how can we ask them, right? So if we have logs, then we can ask that person why this action has been done, and if it is done by mistake, then we can just make a note and we can just keep in our mind that we should not do in future. So by this purpose, we are having just logs, and using these logs you can just do risk auditing, right? Now it can be configured to store data indefinitely in S3 or CloudFirst logs. So now after 90 days, if you want to have logs, so what you can do, you can just move your logs from CloudTrail to S3. And it is very often used to diagnose security or performance issue. And CloudTrail events can be of two types: management event or data events. Management events provide information about management operations that are performed on resources in your AWS account. And data event contains information about resource operations performed in resources. It can be an example, right? We can take an example. If any object is being uploaded to S3 or when a Lambda function is invoked, right? So these will be a use case for data events. Now moving on to the next question. How will you explain elastic cache? Now team, if we talk about elastic cache, so elastic cache can be defined as a web service that offers a path more effortlessly to deploy and save data in the cloud quickly. So let me explain you what it is. Okay. So first of all, take an example. We are having a user here, right? This is my user. Okay. Then I'm having something called as web server here. So I have placed a web server here. Then I'm having database here, right? So this is my database and this is my web server. Now team, if user query for some data and it has just moved to web server and web server wants to access data from database, then there can be a challenge, right? When we have multiple requests to a particular database, there can be latency, so there will be so much load and performance issue. So we have a concept here that is called as in-memory database. This is not AWS concept, this is general concept. Okay, so this is not a complete database, it is a buffer like, okay, and you can call it like a assistant. So we are having an assistant here, so just to improve our performance. So now if web server wants to access data from database, that is frequently used data, so every time going to database, we can do one more thing here. So instead of going every time to a database, we can just place here something called as in-memory database, or what we can call as elastic cache. Okay. So now if user is querying for some data in web server, this web server will just query data to database, right? Now if this is the frequently used data, it will be cached in elastic cache, and now all these requests will be served by elastic cache. And in-memory database has millisecond latency and it has high performance, lightning performance. And if we go for like Elastic Air, there are like two options, Memcached and Redis. And at the end of the day, it is reducing load on the database and increasing our performance. So basically, if we think about Elastic Edge, it's like a RAM, and we are putting our continuous changing data here. So it will just help us to increase our performance. Second thing is that team, it's not a substitute of database, it's basically a add-on layer to just improve our performance. Now moving on to the next question. Now next question we have, how much boost time does an instance stored backed AMI take? So the boot time is less than 5 minutes. So team, if you're having these kind of questions, knowledge based questions, so you can just directly answer if you're just sitting in a interview, right? Now next question we are having, introduce the key features of Amazon Cloud Search. Okay, so if we talk about Amazon Cloud Search, it is a managed service in the AWS cloud that's make it easy and cost effective to set up, manage and scale a search solution for website or application. Amazon Cloud Search supports 34 languages and popular search features such as highlighting and autocomplete that we will discuss later. And with Cloud Search, you can quickly add rich search capabilities to your web application or website. You don't need to become a search expert or worry about hardware provisioning, setup, and maintenance. With a few clicks in the AWS Management Console, you can create a search domain and upload the data that you want to make searchable. And Amazon's Cloud Search will automatically provision the required resources and deploy high-tuned search indexes. And there are like some key features of Amazon Cloud Search that are prefix searches, enter text searches, Boolean searches, range searches, and autocomplete advice. So you can use all these features. Moving on to the next question. So what is AWS Lambda? Team, if we talk about Lambda, Lambda is a serverless computational service that permits you to run code without keeping up any server. So team, there is a keyword that is called as serverless, right? I will tell you one thing that people mostly get confused about serverless, that we are not having any server. It's completely wrong. We are having servers, and all that code or our application website that is running on that servers only. But the thing is that these servers are not managed by you, these servers are managed by AWS. So that's why we are calling it serverless. Not that there are no servers, there are servers, but they are managed by AWS. So that's why we are calling it as serverless. And it also naturally executes the code whenever required, and you are needed to pay for the time that you have utilized it. So you don't have to pay for creating a function running all the time. Okay, so whenever your function will be running, then only you have to pay, right? So what is Lambda function? It's just a piece of code in one language, and Lambda empowers you to run the code virtually for any application without managing any server, right? So you don't have to manage any server. These will be managed by AWS. Now, one more thing, team, and then there can be a use case of Lambda. There is a small use case of Lambda. Like if you are just uploading any object in your bucket in S3, so you can invoke a Lambda, right? And you can do one more thing, like if you want a notification that every time if any object is any object is uploaded, so you should be notified. So what you can do, you can just create a Lambda function whenever the object will be uploaded in a bucket. A Lambda function will be invoked, and using Lambda function you can use SNS service, and using SNS service you will get notification. So this is a small use case. You can use AWS Lambda, or you can use AWS Lambda also when you have just loaded a file in object and you want to just perform any analytics on it. So you, for that purpose also, you can use AWS Lambda. Moving on to the next question, that is define Amazon EMR. First of all, team, Amazon EMR is previously called as Amazon Elastic MapReduce, and it is a managed cluster platform that simplifies running big data platforms such as Apache Hadoop and Apache Spark on AWS to process and analyze vast amounts of data. Using these frameworks and related open source project, you can process data for analytics purpose, business and intelligence workloads. Amazon EMR also lets you transform and move large amounts of data into and out of other AWS data stores and databases, such as Amazon Simple Storage Service and Amazon DynamoDB. And there can be a question where AWS EMR is used. AMR is used in a variety of applications, including log analysis, web indexing, data warehousing, machine learning, financial analysis, and scientific simulation and bioinformatics. So these are the places where we can use EMR. Now, team, moving on to the next question. Now, next question is, what is AWS Directory Service? So, team, the AWS Directory Service is the ideal service for integration and federating with corporate directories. As a result, a user can reduce the administrative overhead alongside ensuring the improvement of end user experiences. Now, for this AWS Directory Services, we can take an example. Now, in your organization, a senior developer is working. Now if you want that you are this senior developer wants to access like lots of machine, then it's not possible. For each and every machine you should be giving him credentials, right? And it will be very difficult for both of you to just always use like maintain the records of these credentials. So what you can do, we can use here something called as directory services, and using these directory services we can just use the same username password, and using this we can just log into several servers, right? And in Windows machine, normally users get created in databases called as SAM, that is Security Account Manager. Now if we talk about directory services in AWS, so in that we are having three options. So first one is that is called as Microsoft Active Directory, and it is powered by Microsoft, and you can use Microsoft AD to log in into EC2 instances, RDS, and many more things. And if you talk, and second option that we are having, it's called as Simple AD, and it is open source or simple version of Microsoft AD, but not powered by Microsoft. It is powered by Samba. Then we have something called as AD Connector. AD Connector is not any directory, but it's like a proxy server. Now take an example. If you are having Active Directory on your premises, and if you want to log into EC2 instance in AWS, so you can use the same directory that is Microsoft AD that is placed in your on premises. So how can you use whenever you are trying to log into EC2 instances, its request is sent to the on premises on then basis of authentication that whether you have the information you have given is right or wrong. On the basis of that you will be able to log in, and when AWS EC2 will be sending a request, it will be using called something called as AD connector, and it will act as a proxy. So it will be not going to do any cache there or store any information. It's just used as a proxy server.